Hello and welcome to my blog channel. I am Adam, and today I want to delve into meta-ethics, specifically the question of why free will is so important, as clearly it is to most people. So even the most die-hard determinists will concede that they at least feel as if they have free will in any given moment. In terms of everyday and concurrent experience, we can make choices, act and feel we decide, and that we are in control of the trajectory of our lives. Ask any given person on the street whether they have free will, and they'll most likely answer, rightly or wrongly, in the affirmative. Free will is such a universally accepted assumption that to question its existence is almost as horrific to the ego as the inevitable and immutable truth of death. Just think about it, how much people generally bring up death or the prospect of their own death in general conversation. It's uncomfortable. It's even considered rude, and it's probably a social taboo. The determinism, or the idea that one state of affairs is fully determined by a previous state of affairs, is almost as scary as it implies a lack of control, an arbitrariness of life, a life which can to the individual seem harsh or unfair. No one wants to think that reality could be so brutal or unjust. I mean, how can it be so that so many individuals are born into the direst conditions? So, like, think of some of these children that you see on the telly who have never had a chance to properly live. They're dying of starvation or disease, war or exploitation, just that kind of thing. It's really sickening, at least to me, and I think to most people as well. As I might cover in another video, the truth as an end to be sought is, in my opinion, highly overrated. I think very few want it, really, deep down. Or at least a very large portion of people act as if the truth is overrated, even if what they say seems to contradict this. There's a huge emotional investment in the reality of free will. The bad implications of the negative are many. I've done a video on that I'll link in the description as well. No free will means that any act you perform is immutable and always predetermined. So statistically speaking, it's very likely you're just going to be an average person, an NPC or non-playable character, so to speak. Me too, just living a standard life of being born, educated, then taking some meaningless job, usually one that most people don't enjoy their jobs, marrying or at least coupling up with someone, usually just to have kids, to perpetuate the cycle with other people, and then you die. Which is, again, it's horrific, isn't it? It's horrible to think about, that your life in those terms. And deterministic universe, to me, would seem to exacerbate that. Being reasoned into obscurity is anathema to most inwardly honest individuals, isn't it? We like to think that I, in inverted commas, you as in I, am special, or that I at least could be special. I mean, it's appalling to us to be kettled into a determined reality. It just denudes us of meaning to our lives. It's depressing, isn't it? What's the point in living if my so-called choices are already decided in some ultimate determined future? Achievement is nothing more than you or I playing out the pre-programmed actions that were themselves caused by my unconscious, unchosen wants, emotions and desires, that were themselves caused with these causes having causes, and so on ad infinitum, or to at least the initial causal state. How can there be any real value in accomplishment and the accompanying praise? For example, winning a gold medal at the Olympics or a Nobel Prize or something like that with no free will. Our choices were already set to that goal. You achieved nothing. At most, the most you could say is that you had the experience. So aside from an implied lack of personal meaning, a determined universe renders crime and punishment irrelevant, or even unjust, ironically enough, which closes in on our own concern here. How can it be fair to incarcerate even the most degenerate criminal on the basis of responsibility, given that they could not have acted in any other way? True, individuals still have an incentive to segregate such individuals from society for safety reasons, but the idea of criminal responsibility is just rendered ridiculous. Trying and punishing a criminal in this world would be similar as it was to us, at least in medieval societies, when they tried and punished animals for crimes. You have instances and stories of pigs being put on trial for murder or theft or something like that. It's ridiculous. At worst, even violent rapists and vile people like that, serial killers, would be viewed as tragic and pitiable figures in a world fully aware of and accepting of the reality of determinism. Yet it all still rankles, doesn't it? It's horrible that causal determinism has a strong case, both logically and scientifically, isn't going to convince anyone. It's not going to overwhelm this emotional leviathan backing our want, let's say, for free will. Politics, religion, ambition, justice, and even our very identities themselves are all underpinned by the concept of free will. Hence the fierce multi-millennial debate over the subject. I think I myself, I'm an agnostic in the area. I won't lie. I share the general horror and the fear that our entire society, our reality, and perhaps even our identities and my identity in life are not fundamentally what we think they are. It's true that the notion of cause and effect is a solid principle. It just is, whether we like it or not, whether we're emotional about it or not. It's long established in science, and also a priori it makes sense. We look around and see that effect follows on from cause. Yet our reality, social setup, and even our lived personal experience suggests a free will. So kind of a conflict going on there. So two issues then are fundamental here. Can our lives have meaning in a determined universe, and does ethics even make sense in a determined universe? As you know, in a couple of other videos, if you're familiar with the channel, I've specifically tackled the first question. So go and check that out. It's good news. Yes, absolutely you can live a perfectly fulfilled and happy life, even in a determined universe, a fully determined universe. On the second question, I would also argue yes, so there is certainly a place for ethics, even in a determined universe, given those same issues explored in my previous videos on meaning, which are namely causal ignorance and self-awareness, so I'll just get into that quickly. That we effectively live in an undetermined reality from any particular individual or even societal perspective makes our choices important in the moment. This is important to stress. All individuals practically exist within any given moment as causal potentialities. That any given individual's actions are predetermined in principle doesn't necessarily translate to a full awareness of how that is so. So human experience, as far as we know, has the added unique property of self-awareness. We consciously experience our own desires, emotions and wants, even if they are themselves uncaused by us. And we act on these. Just as it's a strong intuitive reality that we feel as if we have free will. It's also obvious that we have conflicting wants, desires and emotions, and that choices in the moment are made based on these. We can't really truly know that choice A or B is the determined one from our perspective, or even the perspective of many people. You just can't know. You can predict, maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong, but you can't know. Hence how each individual remains a potentiality up until the point of their death, an overall potentiality and a potentiality given any particular act or consideration. So to take a quick example then, let's look at theft. So to steal or not to steal are the actions or choices before Bert. Let's call him Bert. He has a predetermined, that is unchosen, emotions, wants and desires linked to both potential acts. It's in that moment. So he wants money, he doesn't want to feel like crap for stealing. He wants to do what's easier, so stealing's easier than earning something. He empathizes with Bella, who he's going to steal from, and so on. There's all these different swirling emotions, wants and desires in him, influencing what choice he might make. So in that moment, just call it T, you have choice A and choice B, and their potentialities up until the time of the action itself. And since we know that people steal and also refrain from stealing all the time, and that any given person is not that different from Bert, really, we can surmise that, practically speaking, from our ignorant perspective, so that is, none of us know exactly how things are determined, both of these acts are perfectly capable of being what is that determined reality. For all intents and purposes, Bert is still making a choice based on fully determined emotions, desires and wants. Since Bert embodies the act itself, he's also causally responsible for it regardless, even if not strictly being morally responsible if we disregard his awareness of it. However, Bert is both causally and morally responsible, in my opinion, precisely because he is conscious of, that is, directly experiencing and self-aware of this particular process, from his desires and all of those emotions to the deliberation of the act to the act itself. Bert knows perfectly well that to act either way is possible, at least in the moment, that others like him do this, that he too is capable and perhaps has even previously acted before, so he might have stolen and not stolen, given the choice in previous occasions. And in addition, neither Bert himself, nor anybody else for that matter, can possibly 100% know how this particular situation is going to conclude, beyond the moment itself. So given all of this, regardless of whether or not Bert's decision is immutable, his ultimate decision anyway is immutable with hindsight, is irrelevant in the moment. It is. So I think I'll leave it there for now. This whole line of thinking is an ongoing project on my part anyway. Just wanted to show how things are much more complicated than they first appear. But have I missed anything? Let me know, and I shall see you on the next one. This is Adam, signing off.